Welcome to BWI Live. The recruiting show is back, but in just a few minutes because we have Matt Campbell's press conference to talk about. He spoke at what was supposed to be 11 o'clock, turned into 11:45, which gave us a ton of time to get to the 2 o'clock show. But here we are, excellent professionals that we are, running through the rain, making sure we're dodging raindrops and getting you the information you need to know about Penn State football. And the man doing it with me today is Sean Fitz, reporter for BlueWhiteIllustrated.com, publisher of BlueWhiteIllustrated.com. Fitz, what's new with you since we last spoke on Tuesday?
Well, luckily, it's a lovely day in Happy Valley, if you will. Move-in day, so no issues there getting onto campus. And, yeah, we got some Forrest Gump raining outside right now, man. It's it's pretty crazy. But no, we get a little bit of a little taste of access there. We're done with practices. We believe we're done with practices for the time being. Matt Campbell came into the room today and was like, hey, you're welcome. You weren't at practice today because they practice outside for a good bit. And, yeah. Quite a bit of moisture in the air right now. Would have been fun to see. Would not have been fun to have the equipment out in that, but would, we take what we can get at this point. The last access we had was on Monday. We talked about that on Tuesday, but it's been a pretty open camp so far. And we appreciate what we can get.
Yeah, it's been a ton of fun. I've been spending this week reviewing basically what we know, what we've learned, or what I've learned at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com just as a standard operating procedure on the show. We'll get to Matt Campbell in just 1 second, but subscribe to BlueWhiteIllustrated.com for 75% off right now. I'm going to put the widget back up here so you can see it, the QR code, because I know like half of you watch on your phone, which still as a millennial blows my mind. As somebody who grew up pre-internet, I was thinking about this. I remember buying a computer that did not have internet. Like, we just had a computer in the house. And so, like, I am native to screens, not phones. But for everyone else that's like me, there's a QR code up there. Of course, the link is in the description of the video as well.
I sat in, probably 12 years ago in a meeting in Nashville 24/7, and Shannon was up there. It was like mobile is the future. And at that point, we're at like 30 to 40% mobile maybe. And he's like, yeah, it's going to be 90 at some point. And everybody in the room's like, okay, whatever. But as you learn over time, Shannon does have a decent hold on these things, and that's why On3 exists. So we appreciate anybody that listens in any format, whether it be podcast, whether it be phone, whether it be video. And the best way to do that is by pairing it with your Blue White Illustrated subscription. So hit that QR code. It's been quite successful, the sale that we've been running here. A lot of new members, hundreds of people signed up, want to know what we have to say, and I don't blame you. I think we do a pretty good job.
Let's get to some of that context and conversation. Matt Campbell was asked about Rocco Beck. I thought it was a good question. What do you have to learn about your fifth-year quarterback at this point? Like, what's the point of camp for him? And so this was his response, and we'll get to talking about it after.
Well, I think Rocco's in a completely different space than I've seen him really in his career. What Rocco brings to the table is a guy that's already gone through the highs of college football, the lows of college football. He's been in the same system now going in to his fifth year, and he's played almost, the word I would use, I hate to use the word flawless, but he's played at an elite clip every day. He's had great command of situational football. He's had great command of what we're trying to get accomplished offensively. But the biggest thing that a great quarterback does is he leads the team. The quarterback, if the entire locker room is willing to fight for the quarterback, then you got a pretty special leader on your hands. And I think he's done a really good job in his competitiveness, his leadership to come in and really demand that respect of the football team. And I think it's shown by the way he's played in fall camp. So,
it's interesting. Matt Campbell doesn't really get into a ton of specifics when you ask him questions, and I thought that was one of the more specific answers he's given about a player, and maybe I'm also conflating that with what we talked to Jake Waters about, which we can discuss in just a second, but your initial reaction to his comments about Rocco Beck being at an elite clip.
I think that Well, number one, check out the front page of BlueWhiteIllustrated.com because I wrote most of the story before Matt Campbell talked, but it was about him protecting the football in camp. He's done a really good job so far. He did, throw a couple of, I guess you would call them turnover-worthy balls in the scrimmage the other day. But yeah, he's been very careful with the football in a sense of how Rocco Beck's going to be very careful with the football, because you take a look at, sometimes you can get too corrective in that sense, and I think we've seen that in the past. And from what Beck does, he's seen a lot of things, and that there's no substitute for experience. And Rocco's going to have a chance to make those plays, but also make those decisions to either try to make that play or live another day. And I think that's a very, very important storyline for the fall. That's actually kind of the centerpiece of what I wrote today about Beck and how he's going to be careful, but also be generous, right? He's confident in his receivers. He's confident. We've seen him go to Chase Sowell and Ben Bramer, the guys that he knows, but he also has gotten in tune with Kobe Howard and some of the new guys as well. So how does he handle those split-second decisions? Does he try to do too much? Does he, on the scale, you want him to be Trace McSorley, but is he going to be Matt McGlynn against Florida? Is he going to be Drew when Drew doesn't throw the football because of maybe a chance of it getting picked off? So it's going to be fascinating to see how that plays out, just because he's got 9 interceptions the last 2 years, 8 interceptions the year prior. So he's shown that he's willing to turn over the football to try to make something happen. Sometimes that's a good thing. I think that interceptions in camp are a good thing. But others, can change the outcome of the game. So I'm very, very curious. And there's absolutely no way to tell, because all this prep that he's doing, it's like we talk about with footwork and all this stuff. You can do it so much at practice, you can drill it so much at practice, but when you get into the live stream, things happen. And that's going to be a huge part of what Penn State's final record looks like.
Yeah, the way that he's played the last 2 years has been the good outweighs the bad for the most part. There are certain games where it doesn't always go that way, but if you look at the totality, he makes enough of those plays when he's given his guys a chance that it validates that approach. And I think that's an important aspect of that, because one of the things that Jake Waters was talking about, and John Sauber had been talking with him about this during the spring, something I've seen on film, his footwork has not always been very clean. In the pocket specifically. So everyone wants to point to his shoulder injuries as the reason he had a 59% completion percentage last year. It's not only that. Now, that can be part of it, but it's not only that, because he had a 59% completion percentage the year before as well. And that was in an offense where they were throwing the ball down the field and being aggressive and being successful. That has been an area where, I think some of the feedback is Rocco has improved in that area, has made those strides to be a good, to eliminate some of the whoopsies and the, kind of the brain fart plays where his feet aren't square, he's not getting his hips open to the receiver, those kind of just basic fundamental things that when you rush and or are trying too hard to make a play, that's where he needed to improve. So as much as I agree with kind of the premise of this is a fifth-year senior quarterback, I don't think he needs every single rep. Every player who is not in the NFL already needs to improve on something to get to the NFL if that's where they want to go. So for Rocco Beck, that's one of those areas where if he can eliminate some of those down plays fits, that obviously elevates the entire team.
Well, and not all interceptions are built the same. You loft it downfield to Chase Sowell, and all of a sudden it turns into a punt, which you'd rather you don't want to turn the ball over at all. But that's okay, you can live with that. Rolling out to your right, throwing back across your body to try and get Ben Bramer the ball in the middle of the field. That's a pick. That's more likely to turn into 6 points. And so those are the two things that kind of going out here. And PFF does a decent job of turnover-worthy plays. And I think that if you look at Rocco Beck last year, and obviously after the injury against Cincinnati in October, things changed, or at least his effectiveness changed. I'll say that. But you're looking at a guy that needs to understand his physical capabilities, what he can do, what he can't. And you hope that for a fifth-year senior, that's a guy that can have that perspective.
Let's get to our second comment here from Matt Campbell that I have, and then I'll open it up for any that you have that I just don't have them clipped. And by the way, you can go listen to the full Matt Campbell press conference here on the Blue White Illustrated YouTube channel. It's been up since about noon, but, maybe wait another 45 minutes, watch the show, and then you can go check out some of the context we're talking about once we get through our recruiting portion of the show as well. He was talking about he was asked about the running back position and how many he wants his team to have be able to play for this upcoming season. I'm going to play the clip so I can stop stumbling over my words.
Going to need a lot of them. And, the guys that to me have really stuck out, I think Cam Wallace has had a great camp, really had a great day in the scrimmage on Saturday. Got ones reps, twos reps, threes reps. James Peoples has continued to do a really great job. We know what Carson Hansen can do and will continue to do, and then obviously what Quentin's done. So I think those four guys, I think we were talking about it a little bit yesterday. It's rare that you find tailbacks that can do all the things within the offense. They can all pass protect, they can all run, they can all catch. And so we're excited about that room. I think it's continued to progress forward. And, my guess is we'll need them all, whether it's even on offense or special teams. All those guys I think will be great factors for us.
So I don't want to say I don't buy it, but of course they're going to need every running back on the roster if you consider the non-conference season and wanting to make sure that a lot of these guys don't take unnecessary reps when they don't need them. And I'm not saying that a guy like Cam Wallace is only going to get those reps, but I imagine that's not really the full story. Do you really think they're going to play all four running backs meaningful snaps in meaningful games?
I don't.
Okay.
I think you usually whittle it down to two, and we've seen so much of two backs over the last couple of years. That's maybe just where my mind is. So maybe you stretch it to three. I would say the ability or the sort of the variance in body types and things like that between James Peoples and Quentin Martin probably influences this as well. Carson Hansen's been out for over a week now. They're going to get him back soon, and they seem pretty confident that he'll be fine and ready to go when he gets back. And it's been a 3 running back conversation so far, but Cam Wallace has done some nice things. We've always liked Cam Wallace, nice little player, but it's just a matter of how they can sort of whittle that down. It's going to get into game prep, and you want 1, 2, 3, 4. You don't want 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D, and I don't think that's what they have. Now, I'm hopeful to see Wallace, get in there. Maybe he gets into some kick returning. Maybe he gets into some, situational football and things like that. And hopefully for all 4 of those guys' sake, and we spoke to Savon Huggins after practice this morning, that you can balance that as long as you can. I think Matt Campbell said it, that they're in it for the long run. They want to, have these guys for 17 games if they can. Obviously that's, shooting a bit far into the future, but you're going to have the opportunity to spread these guys out. And, Carson Hansen split carries with Abdul Sama last year at Iowa State. That was basically a 2-back system. But you just have a little bit more wiggle room to play here. And I think Quentin Martin's versatility does give you the opportunity to change some things and potentially play 2 backs at a time. If that's the case, it's very fun to look at this personnel grouping, not mess, but this personnel grouping situation that Penn State has. And you want to play 2 running backs. Okay, well, that's probably going to take a receiver off the field, which is fine. But also you want to have 2 tight ends, which might take a receiver off the field, or play 3 receivers that might take a tight end off the field, might eat into your running back. So they've got options. I just think that
don't forget the offensive lineman. Might want to have a 6th offensive lineman at some point too.
You might want to have a 7th offensive lineman and a fullback. So we'll see what happens. They have options. That's the important thing. And good or bad, I don't know that they have a guy that they can't take off the field. They obviously want to take want to get a lot from Ben Bramer. You obviously want to get a lot from your top level or your top of the depth chart wide receivers. But I don't know that anybody is that much better. You couldn't take Jahan off the field. You couldn't take some of these guys off the field in the past couple of years. So that's a double-edged sword of, they're across the board pretty solid, but at the same time, it's maybe lacking the top-end guy.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, that maybe the opposite of what they had last year, in terms of, it does feel like there are a lot of viable options that you can mix and match with this offense, as opposed to last time where it's like, you have the running backs, yes, and then who are going to be your targets? Where are you going to go? And it's, there's no obvious answer, so the answer is the quarterback, right? The quarterback has to be the distributor. I think you've got solid answers everywhere, but nobody that is, as you mentioned, a superstar, and that has created something that, I've been writing about the things we've learned about the Penn State offense and defense, and one of the things that I've learned is that the running back room, and this will be my last point, the running back room at one point in the offseason, for most of the offseason, I said was a question mark. I see the talent. I see what they want to do, but there's some big hurdles that they have to get over for that room to turn into a strength. There was optimism there in the spring. And I guess what I've seen so far, Fitz, is that this room could be a strength of the team. Like the young guys that are behind Hansen have really taken a step in camp and have done pretty well so far. But to close out my point, and maybe something that I can throw to you, even Matt Campbell said, this is all just preparing for doing the actual thing. This isn't the real thing of playing games.
Yeah, he said that quite a bit. And I think they had some success on Saturday. But, you're going to find, whether you think you have the matchups or not, sometimes it's not going to work. And that's kind of what they're preparing them for. So I just think, based on the expectations that we had, you're losing your all-time leading rusher and your third all-time leading rusher. You're going to take a step back. That's fine. But you can be efficient. You can be a different kind of effective for that group. So I think it's, do you compare it to Catron? I would hope not. Like, Catron's a pro back and was a pro back for 4 years at Penn State. But at the same time, you're going to have to get production out of those guys, and might just be a little bit more level than you would think of being Carson Hansen as the starter and then everybody else.
Yeah. Any other thoughts here, Fitz? What we're going to do for everyone who's watching is Fitz is going to cycle out because he's been dedicated to football coverage, and Ryan is going to cycle in, and we're going to have our recruiting show. At some point, once the water equalizes, we're all going to be back to doing both things. But it's been a blitz, Fitz, of just like all Penn State, like the team proper for us over the first 2 weeks with so much access that we've gotten so far. So any final thoughts, awesome. And then any thoughts about what Campbell said today that we didn't mention?
I did not talk to him today, but I did since we were last on. And I don't know how much you covered. That was Tuesday afternoon, I believe. Alex Manske's situation, very, very interesting situation. I'm glad that we can finally talk about it. It was one of those things where you were looking at, hey, this is a serious situation, and if he's not ready to talk about it, we're not ready to talk about it. But it was a crazy thing when you think back over the last 9 months, or I guess 8 months since they discovered it, that he was suddenly disappeared from spring football, from Penn State. He had to go back to the Mayo Clinic to get open heart surgery. Open heart surgery, not a typical thing that you kick around with a redshirt freshman athlete. Really happy.
Person.
Yeah,
right?
Or a person.
Most people don't have open heart surgery. Yeah.
You would love to not talk about open heart surgery. We would love to not talk about open heart surgery. But, for that to get flagged, for that to get taken care of, I think it's a big deal. And he seems to be in the clear. Obviously, he's going to have to undergo testing for the rest of his life, I'm sure. But for that to happen, opens up the football conversation. Now that he's talking about his situation where he, had to cut his body open. He's got a big old scar right down the middle of his chest from what we have been told by teammates and coaches and things like that. It's pretty gnarly. But at the same time, now that opens up the football conversation. And what we've said for a long, long time with Alex Manske is, hey, they're not sure whether or not this is going to be the guy moving forward. And now to get him back, and you want to see him in games, you want to see him make those decisions on Saturdays and in situations that aren't drawn up for you on a chalkboard or whatever. But so far, I think it's been very positive. And for him, that's why I said it the first or second day of practice, for him just to be out there is amazing. But for him to look as good as he looked over the first 2 weeks of camp, I think is a really huge developing situation, because on a couple of levels here, because Penn State, this staff wants to essentially do the same thing the last staff did and develop their own quarterbacks. They think that is the way to go. That the buy-in, the ability to get a guy in a system for a couple of years and eventually blossom into one of the top quarterbacks in the country is going to help you. It's going to help your bottom line. It's going to help you surround him with talent by not paying a quarterback $5 million a year. Those things are what they are setting out to do. Sometimes it's not going to be the ideal situation, and I think Penn State really rode that line for a long time. I'm not saying they're going to ignore the portal now, but they feel a lot better about that quarterback situation moving forward based on what they've seen from Alex Manske and what they've heard from doctors, from trainers, and all that stuff. And hey, wonderful job by the Penn State athletic training staff, the medical staff there. Very cool. But now we can have the football conversation, which has really been the goal with Alex Manske for a long, long time.
Fitz, appreciate it. We'll have you back, obviously, on Tuesday, so don't go too far. And for everyone else, coming up in just a few seconds, we're going to have Ryan Snyder joining us for the BWI Live Recruiting Show. First thing, though, got to tell you about SeatGeek, because we are just over 2 weeks away from Penn State Marshall, and we will talk about Marshall. Don't worry, we'll preview Marshall when we get to Marshall week, but you should be looking right now to go get some tickets to the game. Code BWI for tickets, 10% off your tickets to SeatGeek. Download the app. Use the promo code BWI for 10% off your tickets to SeatGeek. Make sure you're at the game for a very exciting, very cool opening game with a stripe out. Hitting this hard right off the bat. Today is also brought to you by Andy Ludicky and My Perfect Franchise. Had a chance to sit down and talk to Andy yesterday, and he was just reminding me of his backstory, his history, right? So he was in corporate America, and he was a guy that wanted to get his life back because he was traveling all over the country and all over the world, truthfully, traveling to Europe. Didn't get to see his kids growing up, and he knew he had to make a change. If that sounds like you, he's done it. He's on the other side of it, and he's now helping people do the same thing. So if you're in corporate America, and this is the conversation I asked him, I was like, hey, man, what are people saying about AI? Because everyone everywhere is talking about AI, and I'm not asking his opinion on data centers. I'm just asking, there's a lot of people in corporate management that have a feeling of, am I going to get replaced? If that's you, it's not going to be everybody, right? So I don't have the money or the skills to open my own franchise, because if I did, I probably would have. I have been the number one client for so many of the people that advertise on this YouTube channel. And I just there's no possible way I have the finances to start my own business. Now, maybe you're somebody who does. 404-973-9901, or give him, get on his calendar at andy@myperfectfranchise.net. He's a longtime sponsor here. He's also a lifer on the message boards over at Blue White Illustrated. He's a Texas fan, but he's a lifer on the message board community. So he's a guy that's going to get where you're coming from. And we actually have a Blue White Illustrated subscriber that's about to open a business after going through Andy's process. So check him out. Speaking of, we got to get to one of my favorite people I haven't talked to in forever, Ryan Snyder. Welcome back. I'm glad you got a chance to get away, but buddy, I missed you. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. I'll do a lot better in about a week from now when my children go back to school. I don't know if you can hear them up there. Hopefully you can't, but yeah, it's a zoo up there right now. So we're doing our best to play dad, play my role as a recruiting analyst, right? And just get me to next Wednesday. So now vacation was fantastic. It's good to be back. Sorry we missed 2 shows, although there really wasn't a whole lot to discuss in recruiting. But I will say we've been talking to different sources, different people, right? Trying to build out or get a feel for Penn State's early recruiting boards, right? Positionally, who are they focused on? Who are the guys that can maybe offer things of that sort? Today, we're going to go through the offense. I apologize, Steve. I should have told you we're going to just do offense today because I saw you had Juelz Parkinson on the front. But that's, buddy, it's been hectic. I'm going to let you slide on that one. That was on me, too. I should have told you that. We're going to finish out the defense here this week and hopefully by Monday. And we can do that then on Thursday. But
so let me just jump in quickly. Just jump in quickly. George Parkinson is great. He's on the board, and I'll swap the thumbnail after the show and put somebody else on. So it's super easy.
There's plenty of offensive guys to discuss. So we've got half hour here to go through it, and we didn't do it at quarterback board. I think James Armstrong's pretty firm. You did a great interview with him earlier this year, and he's done a ton of interviews since then that has really kind of made it clear that as long as Penn State doesn't do anything, he has no plans to go anywhere. So we skipped the quarterback board. I think Penn State has a fantastic quarterback. I'm really looking forward to seeing how James progresses this year, as a leader and on the field, of course. But there's so much to like there about James. So we're going to go right in the running back, T. Frank. Is there anything you want to get into before we do it? Okay, let's do it. So right now, I would say that there's one guy really standing out to me the most at running back, and that's William Howard, out of the Philadelphia area, Springside Chestnut Hill. Came up to Penn State for camp in June, and we've discussed him a few times on the show now. 6 foot 200, so he's a bigger back, but boy, he showed a lot of exciting measurables when he camped. Ran a 4.5, showed great explosion as well, and for a player that size, you don't always see that, right? But that's clearly a blueprint that this staff likes. That was similar to Aiden Gibson and some others, right? So you'll see they're unranked by rivals right now. I'm telling you guys, this young man, as long as he performs as expected this year, be really surprised if he didn't take off at some point. I'm not even talking rankings wise. I'm talking, more significant offers, all those kind of things. He's certainly on the radar for a lot of programs now. And I would expect that, as long as he puts the junior season film together that most expect, that he'll have quite a few more offers. With that said, it's good that Penn State has a early foot in the door here. I do think that's going to be important for him because he hasn't taken a ton of visits, right? We'll talk about other players later who have visited 15 plus schools already. So, the fact that he hasn't been able to do all that is a plus for Penn State. The fact that he's from Philadelphia and should be able to visit State College a little easier than most is another plus as well. Right now, he doesn't have anything locked in, but we do expect him to visit at some point. I've been kind of just waiting for him to set it. Everybody wants to come to the whiteout game, right? So that would be the one that we have circled. The whiteout game that isn't technically announced as a whiteout game, which is interesting.
You wrote that the other day, and I was like, did I miss that they finally announced it? Because I've been sitting on a bunch of stuff that I haven't released because of the because they haven't officially announced it yet. Okay.
A lot of schools have been doing that, though. That's Penn State started, the whiteouts and all that stuff a little while back, right? Remember, I don't know, I'm sure there's fans on here. Remember, like when you got your actual ticket, like it was, wear white on it and stuff. And I think they've seen now that a lot of other schools have had success at maybe announcing it a little bit later. And that's kind of, they're taking that model where fans, social media, all those things, like the word is out, right? Like you could do it 2 weeks before and everyone's still gonna follow the pattern, I guess you would say. So I think that's kind of the mindset they're taking there. But I fully expect USC to be a night game on NBC, and it would take a disaster of a first couple of games for both sides. For that to not be the case. So fully do expect that to be the way out. But anyway, let's go ahead.
Yeah, quick question about Howard coming from Philly, and I know that there was some kind of roadblocks at one point with Philadelphia recruiting. I know it feels like it's too early to ask you this question, but is that a benefit for Penn State that William Howard is from Philly, or is that an area where there's still some work to do to kind of ingratiate yourselves with that particular part of the recruiting footprint? How do you read that?
Well, Springside Chestnut isn't like a school that's produced a ton. They have a handful of guys. I think Sean Williams, I want to say, I think he went to Indiana back in the day. I want to say like 2020, 2021, somewhere in that ballpark, was kind of the last guy to come out of there. It's not Imhotep, right? It's not St. Joseph's Prep. It's not LaSalle. It's not those schools that really have the talent. And really, to be fair, I mean, it was really kind of Penn State. I felt like the previous staff had a little bit of a falling out at Imhotep. I'm not exactly sure why or where, but that kind of trended that way over the last 2 years or so. But I don't get that vibe at all with the new staff. And look, it's you're starting totally over, right? And so it's really on them to build those relationships and when they get guys committed, see through and with their development and all those things. So no, you're kind of starting fresh there, even with Imhotep too. I don't foresee that being much of an issue. But one thing I will say is Philadelphia oftentimes in recent years has been producing those guys that have been top 100 or so kind of players, like the Joey O'Briens, some of those other guys in recent world.
Yep.
That's more the stumble than anything. I feel like is some of these guys have been so prevalent that the money then is not quite on the level that Penn State would prefer. But right now, like I said, with Will Howard, that's not really the case at all. He's still kind of scratching the surface, and a player that this staff knows what he's capable of, and I think a lot of others will probably learn with time.
Okay, so a guy that I got to see in person this summer that I thought was a really good player, but didn't necessarily fit the mold that they seem to like. Kind of the opposite is Juelz Chiron-Robinson. Mm-hmm. So I know he's on your list as well. I just felt like I could have a part of the conversation with this guy because I did see him. Really good, athletic, but the frame, I think, is a thing right here. 5'10", 175. How do you read how he fits into the program, and is there kind of a slash role for guys like that who maybe aren't exactly a big back and a lead back kind of body?
Yeah, they love Juelz. And it's great at making guys miss. Another guy who camped at Penn State this year, put up some excellent numbers. Like there's a lot there. It's exactly like you said, though. They want to see him grow. And I don't even know if it's so much height-wise. It's more so filling out, right? And making sure that as he does that, is he still able to make guys miss like he has? Is he able to keep his speed up and those things? And so that's kind of why I'd have him a little bit below William Howard at the moment. But he's absolutely a player that could end up in this class. I think there's a lot of admirers in Lash, and there's a lot that, like I said, just kind of want to see him grow and see how he progresses. So, but, Juelz has added some quality offers for a reason. There's a lot to like there. And, as far as locker room fit, culture fit, excellent kid. He would fit in excellent with this staff. And I think that's a big reason why they're, not going to write him off or, look for bigger backs at the moment. He earned an offer for a reason, but, like so many of these offers, you got to still go out and prove it, right? How many times did Sean and I talk about the early junior or the early sophomore offers, and how's it look when they're end of their junior year going to the senior year. That the board's changed a ton. So he's a guy that can go out there and prove it this year, and I fully expect him to do that. He's a really good kid, works really hard. I mean, there's a lot to like there. Just want to see him fill out a little bit more and keep the traits that make him shine at the moment, as he does fill out, of course.
Yeah, and that's just generally with running backs, because it is such a physical talent position. You've got to maintain that as you get older, and we've seen guys fall off or develop and become top targets, as you mentioned, with those early sophomore year offers heading into his junior season. So we got 4 more names on here. We don't have to go through all of them if you don't want to. I do want to hit on a couple of the national names, because I think that dynamic and how it played out in this particular recruiting cycle is interesting, and we should probably hit on that for the next one. So dealer's choice here of where you want to go next at the running back position.
Yeah, I mean, I want to just mention, Jeffrey Ralston at St. John's, big kid, 5'11", 210, might even be bigger than that now. I saw him at the Under Armour camp in Baltimore. Really impressive physically. I mean, it looks like a linebacker, honestly. Excellent kid off the field too. He went to Georgetown Prep last year. Georgetown Prep is one of the top 5 academic high schools in the entire country. So great family, great kid, all the right things, cares about all the good. He would fit a lot of what they want. I think they really just kind of want to see, how big is he? Is he more like a fullback? I know. Oh, we got 2 fullback.
Right.
We got all these fullback mentions today, right?
Fullback conversations, baby.
He moved pretty well at Under Armour, though, I thought, for his size. But again, this is at the time, what was he, a rising sophomore, or rising junior, end of his sophomore year. And so he's got a lot of time here to grow and progress. And I think they want to see kind of how he's able to go about that. The interesting thing this year, I think, will be comparing him to Deshaun Talley-Rhodes, who, of course, was a 2027 running back that Penn State really liked. He's committed to Indiana now. Both are bigger backs. Ralston's a bit bigger than Talley-Rhodes. But point being is, kind of comparing how they go about their business, because there's a lot of similarities between the two. And I think it kind of gives schools a good way to check, on Ralston, comparing, how would Talley-Rhodes have kind of run that, or, when you're going through the film. So that'll be an interesting thing, I think, to keep an eye on. Marquise Sharp too, I just want to mention quick, down in Virginia, originally from Woodbridge, a guy I'm still kind of learning more on. He's at Loudon Sports Academy now, which is taken off as a program down there. But, we have some good measurables on him, 4.5, ran a 10.8, 100. So I think he's a guy worth mentioning, and a player that I know Penn State wants to get on campus this upcoming season. As you said, national names, we don't have a lot of those. Well, let me clarify. There are plenty of guys who have earned an offer right now, but it's also very clear that Penn State is focusing regionally here, or on all positions, really. And I think that's kind of what you learn in 8 months. Well, you learned it's really hard to get some of these national guys up to Penn State for visits, right? You learned it's hard to keep the Southern guys committed, especially when some of the big time schools want to come. And I think that's we talked about that a lot when, guys were decommitting and all that, right? Learn from your mistakes. And I wouldn't even call them mistakes. It's not even a mistake. It's just, you got to learn your new environment, really.
Yeah.
We're
learn
really
the dynamics.
We're seeing that at wide receiver. We're seeing that running back. We're going to talk about that, I think, throughout pretty much all of these positions right now. So that's a theme that we're seeing, and, certainly the focus right now, but I'd be naive to sit here and think that, some kid from Georgia is not going to emerge at some point, right? Or another player out there. For example,
you really can't just totally abandon the quest to become a national program, because the only way you get there is by trying, right? And we've talked you and I have talked at length about the road that will get them there to credibility with both in the region and out of the region, but it doesn't happen just with winning. You also have to then develop those relationships. So absolutely can't give up on it.
And so, you got Jay Sean Mitchell up there. I mean, he's a 3-star right now by Rivals, but he's going to take off. I mean, his offer list is impressive. Notre Dame, Ohio State, Oklahoma, Texas. We're mentioning him just because I know Penn State would love to get him on campus. He's a guy they really like. Whether that happens or not, honestly, not sure. He's down there in was it San Antonio, I believe, is his hometown. So, it would take quite a bit of travel, and we'll see if they're able to keep chipping away there. And then just Jordan McNeil as well. Out of Georgia. 35 plus offers. He is talking to Huggins regularly. So maybe, a guy to keep an eye on for a visit, but I just know those are 2 true national guys that they really do like. And, if they're able to get him on campus this fall, wouldn't shock me. Or, maybe that'll be more of a spring visit because they're from out of the area. But, two guys that I know that they're recruiting and, they really like a lot, but you got to get them on campus here before I'm going to start buying into, Penn State making their top 5 or anything like that.
Yeah. I love that you have sorted the receivers by outside receivers and slot receivers.
Yeah.
And just like, I think it makes a ton of sense with how they like these. And the names, or at least the sizes that I'm looking at here, 6'3", 6'4", 6'4", makes a lot of sense. So take us through the receiver board and the next attempt at flipping Penn State's perception in receiver recruiting.
Well, and it's funny because I originally didn't do that when I was writing this. This was like 2 weeks ago now. I'm not 2 weeks, but anyway, and I was trying to do it as I did the other ones, which was like regional, national, other guys keep an eye on. And then I kind of realized it's all regional, really. I mean, the wide receiver board is very regional right now. And that's a good thing. That means there's plenty of talent in the area where they don't feel like they have to creep too far out, right? So, but we'll start with the outside guys. And, right now I'd have Samir Edwards out of St. Francis in Baltimore, and Mekhi Parker out of Glassboro, New Jersey, is kind of their 1A, 1B top of the board guys right now.
St. Francis might as well be an out of the region school.
Well, here's the thing. He's from Philadelphia. He's actually not,
okay.
So he does have some ties there. And, he's spoken very highly of, he's not a guy that's like, oh, I grew up watching the whiteout games that,
Right.
I wouldn't say he grew up a Penn State fan, but he's well aware of the program. Right. And knows, watched the Saquon Barkley era, those kind of things coming up through. So that's always a plus. At the same time, you got to go out and earn those commitments. And, right now they are recruiting him very hard, but so are a lot of other schools. The one thing with Samir being from Philly, but down in Baltimore, is it's been a little more difficult for him to travel. Now, St. Francis does have economic means that they can get their guys out on visits, right? So I do expect that to change with time. But what does it say there? Rutgers, Akron, Auburn, excuse me,
Auburn.
and Penn State. You can see only a couple of visits, right? And I actually went back and double checked. I was like, hey, are we missing anything here? And I'm pretty sure that's it. Maybe we're missing one, but those are, I'm pretty sure, his only visits. So where's he go this fall? Where's he able to even go in the spring? I still feel like it's a little early to say, oh, I feel like Penn State's going to definitely be in it, because again, he needs to get out and see a lot of schools. And I feel, if he has a season he does at St. Francis in that national spotlight, that, additional schools will come calling. But with that all said, yes, he is from Philadelphia. He has a lot of interest in Penn State. I do expect him back for the whiteout game. And I do believe, now that I'm saying that, I do believe he was maybe here as an underclassman at one point, but really it was one of those visits that were like for the upperclassmen. St. Francis is a big school with so much talent. You know how it works, Steve Frank, right? Where they bring in.
There's the guys we're going to talk about, and then there's all the other guys that are there on the visit as well.
Yeah, they bring in like 12 guys, and like 3 or 4 of them are the current class that they're really recruiting. I believe Samir was one of those like freshmen that came through and maybe attended a game at one point. But either way, I know like those are kind of the main 3 schools he's visited for sure. So, and I want to mention Mekhi Parker real quick too. He will attend the whiteout game. He's been on campus before. Went to Auburn and A&M in the spring and summer. Interesting to me. I always kind of grabs my attention there. The other thing too, 24/7 just about made him a 5-star not that long ago. So where does he end up in the rankings? Does he end up being one of those kind of top 40 recruits, right? That Penn State kind of gets priced out on often. I do feel like there's a chance with that. But there is a lot of interest there. He and Samir were both invited to the barbecue at the end of June, and they were the only 2, I believe, that didn't actually end up making the trip for whatever reasons it may have been. But both are high enough on Penn State that I expect them to be in the mix. Whether that is the case next June, when official visits start, kind of hard to say. I just feel like both these guys really got to get out and visit more schools, and that's what this fall and those junior days in January are all about. David Forster, I think you know him a little bit from St. Joseph Regional, 6'4", 205. He's camped at Penn State at least once, maybe twice now, I want to say. The thing here is, first off, he went to the opening and put up some crazy numbers. He has a verified 45-inch vertical, which I don't know. That sounds like crazy high to me. I swear, like, wasn't like 38.
That sounds
like,
made
awesome.
up.
Yeah, it sounds made up, right? But I mean, you can go look at it. Like it's out there publicly. I think it's on his Twitter page. Ran a 4.6 or 4.46 Like both of those numbers are wild to me. So whether there's an error in that graphic or not. I'm not 100% sure, but those are freaky athletic numbers. Okay.
Yeah.
It's also from St. Joseph Regional. This is a school that's been very good to Penn State. This is a school that, out of those North Jersey schools, the St. Peter's Preps, the Don Boscos, Paramus, St. Joseph Regional sent quite a few guys there. Of course, Jameer Joseph right now, who, David actually happens to be friends with, is kind of the main guy on the roster at the moment. So I do think he might be favoring Penn State right now, which it's a little early. I don't want to get too far ahead, but if he had to pick today, right, or if I had to put in an RPM today, that would be where I'd lean. He will be back for Penn State, Wisconsin, and that's another big visit here. We're going to talk about that here in a second on another kid, but when you look at their high school schedule, a lot of Saturday games. For David, it was really, I think, only 2 weeks, maybe just one. Actually, I think it was two. I think it was maybe the Marshall game and the Wisconsin game, I want to say. They were the only two that he could really make. So the fact that they were able to lock in that Wisconsin game with him early is really important. So I think he has one more set up somewhere. I forget exactly off the top of my head, but Penn State's in a good position there. And this is a school that's been very good to Penn State. They produce guys that really often work out at Penn State, right? So I think there's reason to be excited about David Forster.
Just a quick question leading into the next player, which I think is a leading question, I'm hoping. But before I get to that, if you have any questions for Ryan, a lot of new names, a lot of guys that we're going to be getting through. If you're listening on the podcast, it's going to be a lot of names. But if you're watching here on the YouTube channel, trying to keep you up to date of, who's ranked, where these guys are in the class of 2028. But if you have any questions for Ryan, drop them in the chat. We'll be happy to get to some of those as we can with the offense. But Ryan, you mentioned that it's all regional for Penn State at receiver. Yeah. Is it a good year in the region? It seems to be that way. Is this a good year to be focusing specifically in this area?
It seems to be that way, yes. Now, I don't want to say it's all regional, too. Like, there are plenty of other guys out there that they've offered and all that. When I look at those national guys, or, not look at them, converse with them and try to learn on it, it's a lot of like, yeah, I've heard from a little bit, but, no visits are said. And, oh, by the way, I'm going to 6 other schools, right? So it's like, okay, you kind of read the room off the bat that it's going to take some work there, where, the regional guys have been, I think, as in steady contact, if not more, with most of the staff. And, a lot of them have come through and visited already and plan to visit again. So that's a positive, but, T. Frank, let's not to skirt around your question, but talk to me in November, right? We're going to learn so much. They have, like, all these guys have size. They got the athleticism. They got all those things, right? But, how often do we talk about that junior season film, man? I mean, it is oftentimes the most important thing that kind of determines where these guys are going to end up. They're going to end up P4 guys, or they're going to end up big time P4 guys, or, they're going to go towards the lesser end, or maybe the group of. So much to be sorted out here. But Lorenzo McMullen.
That's why I asked.
He's not because he's a top guy.
Yeah. So 2 things, like, is Cincinnati in the region? And then secondly, that's why I asked the question, because I looked ahead at some of your notes and, whew, this guy looks good. 6'2", 170. They got a lot. Looks like he's got a lot of talent based on his recruiting ranking. And is it the interest in him?
Is Cincinnati in the region? Probably not. I'll be honest with you. But I just kind of included Ohio in that. It was basically Virginia up through New England, right? And I include Ohio in that.
Listen, Matt Campbell and his staff, they have connections in the Ohio region, so it's not out of the region necessarily. Obviously, then you're contending with Ohio State. So let's start with the obvious there. But they have pulled guys. Qual is from Ohio. Pete Aglidis is from Ohio. They've gotten guys on this roster from that state, so it's not out of the question for sure.
No doubt. So here's the thing. Florida, Ohio State, Notre Dame, I'd all kind of give them a little bit of an edge on Penn State right now. But out of these top guys, especially the receivers, skill position guys, we'll say, Lorenzo's the one player that I've consistently heard of. Hey, we feel really good about the relationship we have with this kid. He fits us well. We've had this relationship going on for a bit now, and they're going to get rewarded with a visit for the whiteout game. So that's big. Again, I would lean towards some other schools as the teams to beat. But, when I've asked about some of these other really, really top-ranked guys, it's a little more open about the fact that, there's a lot of work to do there. We'll pursue them, but, we're not necessarily not expecting much, but we know it's going to take an uphill climb.
We know what the situation is. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's just one of the more often talked about and, excited responses that I get, right, when asking about these elite players. And so we'll see where it goes. Truthfully, T-Frank, I'd be lying if I said I'd scouted him a whole lot and, really know his game. I mean, he's at 6'2", 170. I have him as a slot. I mean, that doesn't necessarily have to be a slot. He could be
he looks like a Z just based on that. Just
he
going
moves
off
really
that
well.
alone.
Yeah, I know all those kind of things, but, truthfully, I'd be lying, like I said, if I've watched him a ton, just because there's so many others to watch, which brings me to my next guy.
Yeah, let me just clean up this quickly. Just for everyone listening on the podcast, 94 overall by Rivals. He's the 25th overall player in the nation. He's a 4-star by everybody. So this is a guy that number 1 in the state of Ohio. So when we talk about, like, Ryan's mentioning all the top schools because this is a guy who, at least now, is on track to be a top 25 player, top 50 player in the nation. But yes, you have the next guy that I think fans should really definitely keep in mind when we talk about the receiving class. So hit on this guy, and I'll stop fumbling over myself in the intro to him. Just trying hard not to say his name so you can.
Owen Johnson, of course, from LaSalle, 5'11", when we have him at 5'11", 190.
Yeah.
I think he is one of the most important recruits in the state for this class. I would put Brandon Murphy in there. There's some others, we could argue about different ways, but to me, Owen Johnson looks like a really talented special player at LaSalle. And LaSalle, I believe, is building something special. Whether they are St. Joseph's Prep in a couple years and they've won, however many state titles it is out of a decade, time will tell. But I really like Brett Gordon, the head coach there. I really like the way he's building his program, what he's building his program around, the kind of players he's getting. And so in a lot of ways, to me, Owen Johnson represents a foot in the door at LaSalle, which is a school you want to get into. And don't worry, we're going to talk about Caleb Davidson down the road, a D tackle there too. But to me, like, Johnson looks special. And what I really liked, one, I was at the PIAA 6A state championship last year, 3 touchdowns against Central Catholic. Zachary Gleason won against a little bit too, by the way. Gleason mainly covered O'Brien, but looked really good in that game. And I think he had 100 yards in his first game they played Central Catholic twice too last year. By the way.
Yeah.
And he did a lot of
playmaker.
Really, yes. And he did it again with Joey O'Brien there too. Like, he put a big number. He had like 70 some receptions with Joey O'Brien out there. And I understand, like, yes, Joey O'Brien's going to take oftentimes, your top receiver or your top corner and sometimes bracketed, but there was times where he was emerging as their top guy. And I thought that's really impressive, just considering, we all know how special an athlete Joey O'Brien is. So
can I jump in here just quickly?
Go ahead.
Just talking, I want to add some context to what you're saying. It's like, it's how you make plays as well. So it's not just that you make plays, it's how you make them. And he did have a couple catches on Gleason, but how he runs routes, his ability to, I think, run a complete route tree at 5'11", 190, and the physicality and the ability to go up and get the football still. Like, there wasn't a lot that you watched and thought, oh, I don't think he can do X. And when I was watching O'Brien and Gleason, he kept showing up as a guy that's on that level as a younger player. Had to learn about him, obviously, for this particular class. But that's more the context. I think sometimes we get caught up in just, like, the numbers, from a football perspective, from a stats perspective, but how you're making the plays. He looks like a legit wide receiver, not just a guy who's out there getting screens or getting the easy yards that O'Brien was opening up for him.
Yeah. So, again, it's early. I don't want to overthink it too much, but to me right now at this point in time, I look at him as one of the most important players in Pennsylvania, at least for this 2028 recruiting class. He hasn't been able to travel much either. So far, he did come to Penn State earlier in the year. Duke, Syracuse, Notre Dame. Those are the only other 3 schools he's visited. He is coming back for Penn State. I just wrote about this today. He will be back for the Wisconsin game. Another massively important get for Penn State, because LaSalle's schedule only allowed for 2 visits as well. It would have been Wisconsin or Purdue. Those were the only ones that would really work. They got him for the Wisconsin game, the game they really wanted him to be at. And, again, he hasn't traveled a ton. Get him on campus as much as you can. He is going to go to Auburn. I think it's the second to last week, I want to say, for their game against LSU. We'll see where that goes. And other schools are going to come after him, right? I mean, he has Notre Dame, a legit Notre Dame offer. There's others. I think Alabama was another one that seems to really want to get him on campus. I think Tennessee too. I saw Oregon offered. I'm not exactly sure where Oregon is in that mix, but Tennessee, Alabama, they seem to be genuinely interested. But
Of course, Notre Dame offered him. They took half of his team from last year, right?
Kenny Sanders is going to just try to take over
Yeah.
LaSalle, I swear, like jokingly.
It's the new McDonough for Notre
true.
Dame.
Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see where it goes, like I said. But to me, at this stage, August 20th, an absolute, there's no must get guys or anything like that. We won't go that far, but man, he would be a really important get, and to get a foot in the door at LaSalle, I think would be really important for them. So, T-Frank, I want to mention one other thing before we go. We can mention Brandon Jefferson quick. He's
sure.
He hasn't visited Penn State. Excuse me, he hasn't visited under this staff yet. I did mention Penn State along with, I think it was a Va Tech, West Virginia, South Carolina, Ole Miss was in there. There are a couple other schools. As schools standing out, they need to get him on campus. We were able to watch him. That photo there was from State College, all 22. I don't know if you remember that. I think it was 2 years ago, T-Frank, when you
2 years ago, yeah.
Sean were there.
Yeah.
And I do remember him, as a rising sophomore at the time, certainly standing out that day. Obviously has good numbers, all those kind of things. But where exactly Penn State's at with him, that's kind of something I kind of need to keep digging on a little bit. But, I know I would have him, top 3, top 4 as far as the guys in the slot that they're very interested in right now. So let's see if they can get him on campus. But certainly a name to circle. I Owen Johnson, though, that's the chips I'm pushing in at the moment there for Penn State. I do want to mention this, though, too, before we let off on receivers. Jaden Jones, athlete out of Avonworth, right? Really highly ranked, out there in Western PA. He wants to play receiver. I think Penn State likes him a little bit more as a safety. And so this is going to be very interesting to me because a lot of schools are telling him about receiver. Now, let me also clarify one thing. 5-6 months ago, it seemed like a lot of schools were more safety, but maybe he's the kind of athlete that can dictate his terms, maybe. And that'll be interesting to see just kind of where that split comes. When you talk to him now, he's like, most schools want me a receiver. That's where they're recruiting him. And I do believe that's the case, right? He's a talented receiver. Don't get me wrong. I'm just really curious to see how does Penn State go about that decision. I think they lean safety. I think they know he's talented enough where they would take him as a receiver. Do you double down on the safety discussion, or do you kind of put that to the side, right? And try to take him as a receiver. So it'll just be interesting to see how that plays out. 6'3", 180. We know all the numbers there. Of course, he led Avonworth to a state championship last year. Excellent player, which, by the way, Hopewell plays Avonworth the first week, next week. So that'll be James Armstrong throwing against Jaden Jones as a safety.
Ooh.
Yeah, that'll be a good film to watch. So curious to see how he goes. But just keep that in mind right now. I have a feeling that Penn State's going to have to just kind of go in on the wide receiver bucket, right? He's too talented of a player. He's in state, all those kind of things. And he likes Penn State a lot too. I just think that they really liked him as a safety, and now they're kind of like, dang it. Oh man, he would have been a top guy for him. But fortunately, Broomfield has plenty of quality safety. So if they do have to go on that wide receiver,
so many safeties. There's so many safeties on this roster, considering how many guys, we also could project 2 safety that are on the quarterback roster as well. So, but he fits, I think, just generally, I haven't seen his film, just to be clear, but like positionally, size-wise, he fits either thing they're looking for from that 6'3" frame. Like, I think he could fit either place.
He's kind of going the Joey O'Brien route,
guys.
Go ahead.
I wanted to say that, but I didn't want to be wrong.
Just from the perspective of 7-on-7, like he blew up, doing the 7-on-7 scene this year. And I don't think he's that talented of an athlete. Don't get me wrong. Jay Jones is a great athlete. I don't want that to come off the wrong way. Joey O'Brien was a 5-star for a reason. But it was just his recruitment is eerily kind of similar to the way Joey's put out, where he went on 7-on-7 tour and crushed it at the OT7s, which is the 7-on-7s you see on NFL Network during the summer. So just interesting to see how that wide receiver safety dynamic plays out, and there's a lot of similarities there with Joey O'Brien.
All right, we got 2 more positions to go through in about 5 minutes, but I don't want to shortchange either one, considering Penn State's going to want about 6 tight ends because they're going to have. In my opinion, they're going to have 3 guys going to the NFL after this season, just based on their talent and timeline. So Penn State needs to replenish the cupboard, and this feels like a good place to spend some time. So what do you see right now on the tight end board here early in the class?
I think it's a board that if they want to get 2 or 3 tight end, if they want to add 2 more, they're probably going to need to do more offers or hand out more offers at some point. But Quinn Weber, without a doubt, out of New Jersey, is a guy to circle. I think Penn State's the favorite right now. He hasn't outright 100% said that really, but raves about Mauser. Excellent relationship. I mean, this is a guy that, again, early, but man, everything is really kind of pointing in Penn State's direction. Out of Rutherford, by the way. I said New Jersey. I just clarifying his hometown. 6'5", 218, by the way. 24/7 has him as a 4-star. We have him as like a low 3-star. That's going to get changed. I can assure you he's going to be higher on the board or higher ranking wise than an 84 3-star. So give that some time. Don't overthink that right now. But he's got a ton of visits lined up. We know he's going to be at Penn State for the Wisconsin game. I don't know that he's a guy that would. I don't want to say
you
definitely
dancing
wouldn't.
Towards popping early.
Yeah, I mean, there's just a lot there that over the years, there's similarities, right? That you've seen from other recruits. The way they talk about Penn State, excitement around the school. But he also has a lot of good quality options. And, if he puts together a heck of a season here, that could surely change. But to me right now, Quinn Weber, without a doubt, out of New Jersey is the tight end to circle. And if I had to put in an RPM today, it would definitely be for Penn State. And honestly, I actually kind of considered it like a couple weeks ago, but then I was like, Sean will be mad at me putting in these early RPMs. Just kidding. I'm just kidding. But I would do what
quickly.
Go ahead.
Just quickly for everyone listening on the podcast, West Virginia, Penn State have been his primary places he's visited. He has visited for about 13 schools. Is that right? My quick math?
I think so.
Yep. Yeah, so he's been out and about a couple of different places. So trying to build up evidence for your case, Ryan, he's seen enough to know, like, hey, I might just like Penn State, and that's that. Obviously, also Ohio State on here as an offer as well. So got, as you mentioned, a lot of offers and some quality offers at that. So good to know. Just some context to the fact that it's a 3-star, but really like it's too early to be ranking and making hard decisions on 3 versus 4 stars.
Quote he gave me a little bit ago. Penn State has been one of my top schools since they offered, and it will most definitely stay that way. So that's not him saying they're my favorite, but they're right there. So I do want to mention Gregory Kerwin real quick out of Rhode Island. Hey, another Rhode Island guy. I don't like I've done this for 16 years now. I don't think I've ever mentioned Rhode Island as much as I have in the last 6 months. But
and a 4-star. Oh,
yeah, Kerwin looks really good. Good numbers. I mean, checked out. He's a good example of going to a Under Armour camp or a Rivals camp. Putting quality numbers together, which all these camps exist because, well, 2 reasons. 1, for media reasons, but 2, they exist primarily because it's a data collection camp, really. And all these schools pay for that information. And he's a good example of that because his recruitment really took off after, I think he was at the, I'm not sure if he went to the Nashville Rivals camp, I want to say. But, just put up some quality numbers, all those kind of things there. And, now he has all types of different offers. Visited Penn State in the summer. Needs to go out and visit some more schools still before I can truly sit here and be like, yeah, I think Penn State should be a top 5 or something like that. But the visit was very positive. Family seems to really like Penn State. And I do believe there's a good chance he'll get back. I don't know if it'll be this season just because he's no longer in Rhode Island. He's now at Lipscomb, down in Tennessee. I do believe his family's living down there with him, so maybe that'll help make it a little bit easier to travel. But at the same time, going to a new school, you're out of the way. I'm not going to put too many visits on his plate at the moment. So keep that in mind. 2 others I want to mention. Go ahead. You got something to say, T. Frank?
No, I was gonna set up the next one because it's not often we get to talk about Iowa tight ends, and I love it. Tell me more,
T. Frank. So Jevin Severson, one of the top guys in the country right now. Okay, he's also my pick to be this year's Israel Abrams, and here's why.
Okay.
It's kind of confusing to me because I thought that they would be a little more all in on him, and I don't get the vibe that they are, and so I don't know whether maybe that's because he's involved with so many bigger programs already, and that from a financial perspective, they're like, that could be part of it. But Madrid, Iowa was also like 30 minutes from Iowa State. So they offered him at Iowa State as I think a freshman, maybe an eighth
Okay.
grader. I'm not. It was very early, so they've known him for a long time, know the family well, and they're still pursuing him. I don't want to come off as that they don't want him. They would take him. I just was surprised when I was going through these conversations with different people that I thought he'd just be a little bit higher on the board, but he hasn't visited yet, right? And so that's interesting to me. There's been a lot of those Iowa State guys that they were recruiting hard that they really wanted have since visited since then. So that's interesting to me. But 6'5", 230, he's ranked top 100. He's consensus 4-star, all those kind of things. If they get him on campus, we'll see where things progress. But it's just been a little head scratching, I guess you'd say, because I thought he'd be a guy a little bit higher on the board, and it doesn't exactly seem to be the case. So, we'll leave it at that for now, and let's see if he gets the campus here sometime soon.
Before we get to the final player here on your tight end board, I just want this particular part of the show, I think is really important to say guys are going to emerge, because when it comes to physical development of positions like tight end, not everyone is 6'5" when they're 14 years old. So the physical dimensions to play the position along with the athleticism, and then obviously this team, I think in particular, their desire for tenacious run blockers and guys to be physical at the point of attack, all those things, they are going to show. It's easier to manifest those once you're a little bit older. And so I want to do these shows so that kind of the lay of the land. Get Ryan's view of what's going on. But what inevitably happens, Ryan, is we say some names starting in August of 2026, and then people latch on to those names, and then those are the only names. So just stay with us, right? So stay with us, especially at certain positions. As the position develops physically across the country, new names are going to emerge, and we do need to make sure that we're nimble enough that we don't lock into just hyper fixating on even Owen Johnson, right? If there's another receiver out there and things don't work out, the receivers there, but tight end and offensive line specifically, just keep an open mind that if some of these top targets go somewhere else, this is a position where you will find them late junior and then senior season, even
if you read my intro to every one of these position boards, it's always that hey, it is August right now. These are the guys I know they like. But let's be very clear that there's probably going to be an offensive lineman that I do not have anywhere on the radar at the moment who ends up at Penn State, right? Ryan Robinson, for example, John sounds like there's so many examples of that. Now this class is a little bit different, obviously, with the different coaching staff coming in, but there's plenty of examples of that, during the James Franklin era as well. T-Frank, okay, I was going to say, do you want to just go to O-line? Grant Bowen's awesome. I don't think he's coming to Penn State. Okay,
that was kind of my setup for this one. Yeah, perfect. That was my setup of here's elite a guy that's ranked really high and elite athlete, 6'4", 220, but there might be guys that are 6'6", 220 in 2 years that then are equally good and have they aren't ranked specifically that
way. They love
him.
Everybody loves Grant Bowen. He's a special athlete. Could play linebacker and be elite. Could play tight end and be elite. He's one of those guys that every school in the country is going for. Of course, they're going to try and get him on campus. They think he's a special athlete. He's undoubtedly a special athlete. I feel pretty confident saying that. No visits are set. He has a bunch of going to a bunch of other elite schools. I don't know. I don't really see it going too many places. So we're hour 2 minutes in. Let's go to O-line quick. Let's finish out here with the O-line. Separated between interior O-linemen and offensive tackles, right? So just for you, T. Frank, did that for you, buddy.
Thank you.
No, I'm kidding. Interior, two guys at the top. Nick Anderson, undoubtedly Penn State legacy prospect, right? I think we've talked about him a bunch. 6'3", 260. If he's a little bit bigger, I feel like his recruitment is on a different level because athletically, he's incredibly special. We saw that T. Frank at one of Penn State's camps this year, and we've seen that actually multiple times now. He did that at the San Antonio camp down in last January, the Navy All-American game. Anyway, that's a massive camp with literally 1,000 guys, and he ranked near the top in just about every athletic category for linemen. At 260 though, too, 6'3". Let's keep that in mind. So size is the only thing that's a concern, but I have no doubt that he is one of their top interior guys. They're going to push very hard for Nick, and he's a Penn State legacy prospect, right? So he should be a player that they're able to land. But let's see where he goes. We know he's going to go visit LSU, and he has some others coming up. So don't want to get too far down that boat, but the staff needs to be laid a legacy guys from Pennsylvania, at this kind of a recruiting cycle, this time of their tenure. So, and I would also have Carter Barrett in that mix now. Now, Carter Barrett is very interesting, right? Another Iowa prospect out of Dowling Catholic, same school as Jackson Smollett, by the way. 6'6", right? So you hear 6'6", you're like, man, that sounds more like a tackle to me. But he's 310, and so he's got a big base, right? And so is he going to be a tackle long term? I think Carter wants to play tackle. I also understand why rivals list him as an interior guy. And so I think this is going to be interesting to see how Penn State and all these schools kind of go about this dynamic, I guess you'd say, of seeing how he progresses and seeing how he moves. And, like I said, he's a highly rated player, going to be a guy that, we know Clanton goes very hard for. But is he definitely going to be tackle movement skills wise? And I think that's kind of the one
John
concern
Sasek in this class would be kind of a comparison.
Yeah, there's some similarities there. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. So anyway, he's very high on Penn State. He's coming back to campus this fall, and he's been here multiple times. And this is a player that, again, early. I know. I think I've said that 15 times now, but should be. I do believe that Penn State's kind of top 5 this year. I'd be kind of surprised if he goes official visit route. Maybe he won't, but if he did, I feel like Penn State's trending to earn one of those. So keep an eye on that.
I like the fact that they have in this transition to Pennsylvania, they still have these Midwest ties. It increases just your natural footprint if you still have some of those relationships, and they will atrophy over time, as you and Fitz have talked about. But meanwhile, if you can get an offensive lineman from Iowa, do it. Do it. Go and get offensive linemen from wherever you can, because finding these guys that don't grow on trees. And so I think that this is there's an opportunity here for Penn State with Ryan Clanton and with Matt Campbell and with just generally the staff they've brought over to make the best of both worlds as they get integrated into this side of the country. So that was just one thought I had. Who's next on your list?
Yeah, I would put all 3 of these next guys kind of together here, right? I'm not trying to speed up too much, but I do hear my children yelling upstairs. So anyway, Carson Atkins, Alvin Holland, Justin Parrish. Those would be 3 guys I mentioned. Carson Atkins out of Newark, Ohio. He camped at Penn State earlier this year. We have him at 6'4", 295, and he's a 4-star in the industry rankings. Here, Carson, I think. Well, first off, he's a guy they're going to pursue. I think they wanted to see a little bit more from him athletically at camp, but position drill wise, really, and showed him, has that fire, right? Gets after it, got a little of that dog in him, right? And so I think that was very exciting to them, and that's why he's gonna be a guy that they certainly pursue. But athletically, there are a few questions there. Alvin Holland and Justin Parrish have not visited yet. Holland's out of Virginia, Kings Fork, in Suffolk. He is planning to be on campus. I believe it's for the USC game. We have him at 6'4", 255, 265, somewhere in that ballpark. I haven't seen him up close yet. I know that Clanton's going to pursue him pretty heavily, and he's going to be a guy that I need to learn more about and build a relationship with. And then the same with Justin Parrish as well. He's out of Omaha, Nebraska. There you go, T. Frank. Another Midwest lineman to keep an eye on. We have him at 6'3", 270. He's the 3-star at the moment, but I think he's going to probably end up being a 4-star. He's kind of one of those guys that has high 3-star ratings now that, should end up bumping. And I believe 24/7 already has him as a 4-star. So keep an eye on Parrish. He's planning to visit for the Minnesota game, and that will be his first visit to Penn State. But both those guys have, early budding relationships with the staff, lots of physical traits that they like. Get them on campus, though. It's so important, right? Especially linemen. Are you 6'4", 255, or are you 6'2.5", 270, right? Because there's a big difference.
Yep.
In how you project. And so it's so important to get these guys on campus, and that's what they're planning to do. And, there will be others here with time.
I apologize. I wanted to put up the picture of Justin Parrish because he looks like he's 12 in the photo, and it is listed at 6'3", 270. And if he's 6'3", 270 and looks like that, yes. I don't care. Recruit that guy because he's definitely going to grow bigger.
Big hands.
Speaking of
big hands, big feet, and baby faces. Isn't that what we always heard all the time?
For sure. Yeah. Guy who's already grown, though, is Ty Wynn, offensive tackles transitioning over here. A guy who is a consensus 4-star. You wrote about him. I think he's either a well-known or growing to be one of the well-known names in this class. So just take us through where Penn State stands with a guy who's got offers from all over the place from your reporting.
Yeah, another Philadelphia native out of Monsignor Bonner. 6'7", what we have at 6'7", 255-ish, somewhere in that ballpark.
6'7" and a half. You have him at almost 6'8".
Oh, sorry, I shorted you half an inch there. My bad, bud. Florida, Florida State, Georgia, Ohio State. He's got a bunch of visits. I think he has 10 visits. Penn State will get him on for the whiteout. Sean and I kind of discussed, or no, maybe Sean put this on the board the other day. I forget exactly where, but he's very good at him, and people around him are very good at promoting himself, right? And so
Yes.
he's gotten into a ton of visits already. He knows well-known name. I'm curious to see, a lot of schools will be watching his film this year to really kind of figure out where he stacks up. And I from what we saw at camp, there's a lot to like there, but is he going to be that Ohio State, Georgia kind of recruit? Or is he going to be more so like a Penn State, Maryland, not that Penn State's on Maryland. So but you get what I'm saying, right? Is Penn State going to have to duke it out with the best? Or they're going to have to
priced out of the market, right?
And that too,
that's what
right?
You're trying to, yeah.
Or they're going to have to duke it out with kind of the regional guys that they can. And I think we're going to learn a lot about him this year. So, he's a guy that we've talked about a ton, names out there a ton, also very well at promotion, and he's done very well at promoting himself and all those kind of things. And so I feel like this junior season film is going to tell us a lot about where he stacks up. Is he truly one of those national guys or not? We're going to find out. So keep an eye on Ty Wynn, no doubt. I'll go through a couple guys real quick here, but Aton Dalia, another guy out of somewhat the region. He went to Camden last year, 6'7", 300, a guy that came up for the barbecue, at the end of June. Really raw. He's one of those guys that when you watch the film, he kind of, it's the body weight doing it more so than the hands and the feet and the things. Yep. But there's a ton to like, and he's a fantastic kid. And guess what? He's going to IMG now. And so another guy we're going to learn a ton about this year. I really like the player. I really like the kid. I just need to see the development side, from a fundamental perspective, to at least have me believe that, like, okay, he's definitely a Penn State level guy. But there's a lot to like there. And I like the fact that he's at IMG, because I do believe, he'll get some quality coaching, and maybe more important than the coaching, it's just he can't use his body to push around, IMG defensive linemen in practice every day, right? So you're going to learn so much about him and his progress. And hey, look, even if he struggles in the beginning, like if he just shows that progress down there at IMG, like that's helped so many guys grow in their recruitments with time. So it'll be fun to watch. Yeah, man. I mean, we got Cannon Zubek. He's going to be an elite recruit. He's coming for the USC game. Just about everybody in the school, everybody in the country wants him. Oregon's out there. There's a ton of schools, right? So another one of those guys that has a good relationship with the staff. Also is incredibly highly recruited. Offensive tackle. Yeah, so I could see the money there. Not that I think he's a money guy or anything like that, but he's also his first name's Cannon. So as an offensive lineman, can't do better than that. Like Butch Cannon, you want some Jeff? I don't know. End of the show. We're good on that.
All right,
but yeah. So that's pretty much. Again, we'll go through defense next week. I just kind of wanted to get some of the top guys out there about. And by the way, Zubek is coming for the USC game, as is most, and I think we've developed enough of a list now where I probably need to put that out there a little bit, for all the upcoming games. But we will maybe work on that next week. But T. Frank, I know you have stuff to do because you had to go to press conference today and all that. So I will leave you alone, and appreciate everybody being on today. And we'll recruiting's 2 weeks away, guys. 3 weeks away. We're going to get back in the swing. But I do think going through these boards is important, and these are all important guys to know.
And you killed it. A lot of information today. So if you need to listen, I know a lot of people listen on like 1.5 or 2 speed on the podcast side. Maybe just listen to it on regular speed, because we talk fast as it is, and you're going to miss some stuff because I don't know, like you're underrating. Fitz talks in a low tone, but he talks really fast. It's just that he doesn't have the range that you and I have, but he can compress a lot of thoughts into like a sentence and a half when it comes to the time frame as well. We got a lot of fast talkers on this show. All right.
Well, buddy, it's been good seeing you. I haven't seen your face in a while, man. It's good. It's good to catch up with you.
Haven't been coming up to practice. You've been off. You've been like what? Being a dad? How lame is that?
I was gonna come on Monday, and then you guys had all the photos already done. I'm like, well, I don't need to take any photos. You guys are good to go. So we'll be up soon.
Right. I'm going to be coming up with some stuff that we've learned from training camp videos over the weekend. So make sure you stay tuned here. Subscribe to the Blue White Illustrated YouTube channel. We went an hour and 15 minutes. We go an hour on the show. As the season gets into, like, we're going to get more content for people that want, like, a 20-minute dose of just, like, a hit and get going. We're going to be doing more stuff for you like that. We've been doing some throughout camp, but there's been a lot of information and things like that. But I just want to let you know, like, there is more of that stuff coming. So stay tuned, subscribe, and we will see you later.